I never thought money would be the reason my own family tried to erase me, but that's exactly what happened. It started with a wedding invitation, or more accurately, the lack of one. My younger sister Emily was getting married. Huge venue, luxury resort, black-tie dress code. The kind of wedding people post about for months. Everyone in the family was talking about it, except with me. At first I thought it was an accident. Maybe the invite got lost. Maybe she forgot. But then my cousin posted a picture in the family group chat. Custom gold-embossed invitations. Everyone reacting with heart emojis. Everyone saying how excited they were. That's when I realized something. Everyone had received one. Except me. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. I just watched. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice had that fake softness she uses when she's about to justify something ugly. She said, "Sweetheart, Emily thought it would be better if you didn't come." Better. I asked her why. She hesitated. Then she said something I will never forget. She doesn't want tension at the wedding. Tension. Apparently, my existence was tension. You see, growing up, Emily was the golden child. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who moved out early, the one who built something on his own. While Emily married into money. Her fiancé's family owned half the commercial properties downtown. They had generational wealth, private schools, country clubs, the kind of wealth that changes how people look at you. And suddenly, my family started looking at me differently. Not with pride, with comparison. And comparison is dangerous because I had done well, very well, but I never flaunted it. I invested early, built tech companies, sold 2 of them quietly, kept my name out of headlines. I never needed validation until that phone call. "She thinks your presence might make things uncomfortable," my mother repeated. Uncomfortable for who? For her. Or for the people who didn't know I was paying for something they were about to celebrate. Because here's the part nobody in my family knew. 3 months earlier, when Emily's fiancé's father ran into unexpected liquidity issues, guess who stepped in? Guess who quietly funded the wedding venue deposit? Guess who wired $500,000 through a holding company so the event wouldn't collapse? Me. They never asked. They never thanked. Because they never knew. And the irony, the wedding only existed because I made one phone call. I hung up on my mother that day. Not angry, just quiet. Very quiet. And when I'm quiet, it usually means I'm thinking. 2 days later, I received a message. Not from Emily, from her fiancé. It read, "We appreciate what you did, but it's better if you stay away." Appreciate what I did, so he knew. Which meant one thing: this wasn't about tension. This wasn't about drama. This was about control. And control is something I never surrender. I didn't respond to his message, not immediately. I wanted to see how far they were willing to go. Silence makes people nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. The next morning, my phone started lighting up. First my aunt, then my cousin, then my uncle, all of them suddenly concerned, all of them repeating the same script. "Maybe it's better this way. Weddings are stressful. Don't make this bigger than it is." Interesting choice of words. Don't make this bigger. As if I was the problem. As if I was threatening something by existing. I stayed calm. I asked one simple question. "Who told you I was upset?" Silence. Because I wasn't, not outwardly. But someone had clearly decided to prepare the battlefield. And when families prepare the battlefield, it means someone is hiding something. That evening, my mother showed up at my apartment, unannounced. She never does that. She looked uncomfortable. Not angry, afraid. She sat down and didn't touch the tea I made her. Finally, she said it. "They're worried about how it might look." "Look, to who?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "To the investors." Now we were getting somewhere. Apparently, Emily's fiancé's family wasn't as stable as they pretended to be. They were trying to close a major real estate deal. Huge development project. And appearances mattered. They didn't want questions. They didn't want whispers. And apparently, they didn't want anyone digging into where the sudden liquidity came from. That's when I understood. They weren't excluding me because I was a problem. They were excluding me because I was leverage. My presence meant risk, because if anyone asked how the wedding was suddenly fully funded, there would be only one honest answer. And that answer wasn't part of their polished narrative. My mother finally said what she came to say. If you care about your sister, you'll just let this go. Care. That word again. Funny how care only works in one direction in families like mine. I asked her something she didn't expect. Does Emily know who paid for the venue? She froze. Which meant she did. She knows, my mother admitted quietly, and she still doesn't want me there. Another pause. Then the truth slipped out. It wasn't her decision. Of course it wasn't. It never is. Emily had always adapted to whoever held the power in the room. And right now, power wasn't coming from her. It was coming from the man she was about to marry. And his father. The father who shook my hand 3 months ago. The father who looked me in the eye and said, "You're family now, family." That word is cheap when money is involved. I stood up, walked to the window, looked down at the city I helped build, and I realized something important. They thought excluding me would protect them, but what they didn't understand is that I never invested in the wedding. I invested in the leverage, and leverage is only valuable when you use it. I turned back to my mother, calm, controlled. "Tell them I understand," I said. Her shoulders relaxed. She thought I was surrendering. She thought I was stepping aside. She didn't realize I had just made a decision. And once I make a decision, things move. Fast. I didn't argue. I didn't threaten. I didn't call anyone. I made one phone call, not to my sister, not to her fiancé, to the bank. 3 months ago, when they were struggling to secure funding for the development project, I stepped in quietly, not as family, as a private investor, short-term liquidity. Bridge capital, 7 figures, structured through an SPV, clean, legal, silent. And here's the part they forgot. Bridge capital comes with timing clauses. I opened my laptop, pulled up the agreement. Section 4.2, early recall rights. If material misrepresentation or reputational risk affects the investor's position, funds can be recalled with 14 days' notice. Reputational risk. That phrase suddenly felt very useful. I forwarded the clause to my lawyer. 2 words in the message: execute review. Within an hour, I received confirmation. A formal compliance inquiry would be initiated. Nothing aggressive, just procedural. Banks hate uncertainty. Investors hate headlines, and developers. They hate delays, especially when a land acquisition window is about to close. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. Her future father-in-law. His voice was calm, too calm. I heard there might be some confusion with the funding structure. Confusion. Interesting word choice. I let him speak. He talked about family, about unity, about how misunderstandings can be resolved privately. I waited until he finished. Then I asked one question. Why was I removed from the wedding? Silence. A long one. This isn't related. It is to me, I said. He exhaled slowly. There were concerns. About what? Optics. There it was again, optics. I leaned back in my chair. You were comfortable taking my money, I said quietly, but not comfortable taking my presence. His tone shifted, slightly sharper. Let's not complicate this. Oh, it was already complicated. 14 days, I replied. For what? For clarity. And I ended the call. The next morning, things moved exactly as expected. The compliance department requested additional documentation. The acquisition timeline paused. Their legal team started calling mine. Polite, professional, nervous. Because here's the thing about leverage. You don't need to shout. You just need to apply pressure at the right point. And right now, their pressure point was liquidity. Emily texted me that afternoon, first time in days. Why is Dad freaking out? Not hi. Not what's going on. Just damage control. I typed one message. Ask your fiancé who really paid for the wedding. 5 minutes later, she called. Her voice wasn't angry, it was shaken. They said you were just helping. I was, I replied. They said you were unstable. That one almost made me laugh. Unstable people don't structure 7-figure bridge deals, Emily. Silence. Then the question she should have asked from the beginning. Why didn't you tell me? because you didn't ask, because you trusted the wrong narrative, because power had already shifted. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said something simpler. Because I wanted to see who you choose. That hurt her. I could hear it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This was never about the wedding. It was about positioning. They tried to sideline me to protect their image. But now their image depended on me staying quiet. And quiet is expensive. 14 days, that's all they had. And for the first time since the invitation disappeared, I wasn't reacting. I was controlling the board. Day 6. They didn't wait 14. They never do. When liquidity tightens, pride evaporates fast. My lawyer forwarded the email at 9:12 a.m. subject line, proposed resolution, predictable. They wanted to clarify misunderstandings. They wanted to reaffirm family unity. They wanted to adjust public narratives. Translation: they were bleeding time. The land acquisition window was closing. Construction loans were conditional, and compliance flags, even small ones, scare secondary investors. At 2 p.m. we met. Private conference room, glass walls, neutral territory. Her future father-in-law sat at the head of the table, 2 lawyers beside him. Emily was there too. She looked exhausted, not angry, just confused. Good. Confusion is the beginning of awareness, he started. We value what you've contributed. Contributed, interesting word. He slid a document across the table, an amendment. They were offering to convert my bridge loan into equity, minority position, no recall clause. In exchange, they'd issue a joint statement. Early investors remain committed, stability restored, no reputational risk. And almost as an afterthought, they would be happy to reinstate my invitation to the wedding. Be happy. I didn't touch the paper. Instead, I looked at Emily. Did you know about this structure? I asked. She shook her head slowly. Her fiancé avoided eye contact. That told me everything. This was never about optics. It was about control. If I converted to equity, I'd lose leverage. If I stayed silent, they'd regain narrative power. And if I accepted the wedding invitation now, it would look like I folded. I finally picked up the document, flipped through it. Neat. Strategic, carefully drafted. They were good, but not good enough. I closed it. Add 2 things, I said calmly. The room stiffened. First, full disclosure to all co-investors that I was the original bridge capital provider. One of their lawyers inhaled sharply. Transparency changes hierarchy. Second, board observer rights. Not control, not dominance, just presence. Visible, permanent. The father-in-law's jaw tightened. That's excessive. No, I replied. What was excessive was removing me while using my capital. Silence. He studied me, measuring, recalculating. Because here's what he realized in that moment. I wasn't trying to destroy the deal. I was trying to reposition inside it. And destroying me had already failed. Emily finally spoke, soft but steady. Why didn't you just tell me from the beginning? I held her gaze. Because I wanted to see whether you'd defend me when I wasn't in the room. That landed. Her fiancé shifted in his chair. Uncomfortable. Good, he should be. The father-in-law leaned back. If we agree, he said carefully, the recall review is withdrawn. Yes. And this becomes private. It already was. 10 seconds of silence. Then he nodded once. We'll revise. Meeting adjourned. As they gathered their papers, Emily stayed seated. When the room cleared, she looked at me like she used to when we were kids, trying to figure out if I was protecting her or teaching her something. Was this about the wedding? She asked. I shook my head. No, she waited. I stood up. This was about respect. And for the first time since this started, I saw it. Not fear, not doubt, understanding. The deal wasn't finalized yet, but the board had shifted. They tried to remove me from the picture. Now I had a permanent seat at the table, and the wedding, that invitation would come again, but this time it wouldn't be charity. The revised agreement arrived 48 hours later. Clean, transparent. My name listed as original bridge capital provider. Board observer rights secured. Recall clause withdrawn voluntarily. They signed first. That told me everything. Power had shifted. But the real test wasn't in a boardroom, it was at the wedding. 3 days before the ceremony, Emily came to see me. Alone, no fiancé, no lawyers, no scripts. She stood in my living room for a full minute before speaking. "I didn't know they were trying to sideline you," she said. "I know," I replied, "but you didn't ask either." That hurt her. "Good, growth usually does." She sat down. "I thought you didn't care about this stuff." "I don't care about attention," I said calmly. "I care about being erased." Silence. Then she said something honest. "They said you make people feel small." I almost smiled. "Only insecure people feel small around confidence." She looked down. "I just wanted everything to be perfect." "And was it?" I asked. She didn't answer, because perfection built on manipulation never lasts. The day of the wedding arrived. Private resort, white marble floors, crystal chandeliers, expensive flowers flown in from Europe, everything curated, everything controlled. And then I walked in, not late, not dramatic, on time, black suit, no announcement, no spectacle, just presence. The room reacted before anyone spoke. Whispers, glances, calculation. Her future father-in-law noticed me first. His expression didn't change, but his posture did. He walked over, extended his hand. "Glad you could make it." Now he was. Respect is funny like that. I shook his hand, firm, measured. "No confusion this time," I said quietly. He gave a small nod. Emily approached next. She looked relieved, not because I came, because she understood. "I'm glad you're here," she said. This time it felt real. The ceremony was beautiful, vows, applause, champagne. And during the reception, the father-in-law gave a speech. He talked about legacy, about partnerships, about the strength of aligned families. Then he did something interesting. He acknowledged early supporters of the development project, by name, including mine, publicly, in front of investors, in front of extended family, in front of everyone who thought I was just tension. Polite applause filled the room, but the real applause was silent. It was in the shift of perception. No humiliation, no revenge speech, no dramatic reveal, just positioning. Later that evening, Emily found me near the terrace. "I didn't realize how much they needed you," she admitted. "They didn't," I said. "They just didn't want to lose control." She studied me carefully. "Did you ever plan to actually pull the funding?" I looked out over the city lights. "No," she frowned slightly. "Then why go that far? Because sometimes you don't apply pressure to destroy something. You apply it to teach people where you stand." But I didn't phrase it like that. Instead, I said, "Because if I let it slide, it would happen again." She nodded slowly, understanding again, growth again. Across the room, her husband watched us. Not threatened, just aware. He finally understood something too. Money creates power, but leverage creates respect. As the night ended, I received a quiet message from her father-in-law. 3 words. "Future board meeting." I smiled slightly. Not because I won, but because I was never trying to win. I was making sure I wasn't erased. Family can test you. Money can expose you. But dignity is negotiated. And if someone tries to remove your seat at the table, make sure they remember who built the table. 3 months later, the development deal closed, fully funded, oversubscribed, investors confident, press coverage positive, my name listed in the official filings, not loud, not flashy, just undeniable. The board meeting started the following week. Observer seat, glass conference room, same table where they once tried to keep me out. The difference now, no one questioned why I was there. They adjusted when I spoke. They listened when I asked questions, and I only asked the important ones. Margins, risk exposure, exit strategy. You learn a lot about people when pressure disappears. Her father-in-law became more measured, more transparent. He realized something valuable. You don't neutralize strength by pretending it doesn't exist. You align with it. Emily changed too, less eager to please, more willing to challenge. Power had brushed against her life, and she felt it. One evening after a board meeting, her husband stayed behind. No hostility, no ego, just honesty. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "You tried to sideline me," I replied calmly. He nodded. "I thought keeping control meant limiting variables. And now I understand control is about stability." Exactly. Weeks later, I received a small envelope in the mail, no sender. Inside was a copy of the original wedding invitation, gold embossed, my name written in proper calligraphy. Under it, someone had handwritten 3 words, should have asked. No signature. It didn't need one. I placed it in my desk drawer, not as a trophy, as a reminder, because this was never about revenge. It was about boundaries. When people think you're quiet, they assume you're weak. When you don't chase attention, they assume you lack power. But real power doesn't announce itself. It waits, it watches, and when necessary, it adjusts the structure of the room. Family didn't change because I fought them. They changed because they understood something. Respect is cheaper than rebuilding trust. And leverage. Leverage is only dangerous when someone forces you to use it. So if there's one lesson in all of this, it's simple. Never remove someone from the table if you don't know who paid for the table.